Children are fascinating creatures. I can't help but marvel at in a way they act and think. Their minds are molded so easily, so effortlessly, like the softest dough in the strongest of hands. I worry that I will never understand this child, though, and how she fought. These things just drifted through my head as I examined the dimly lit room. The doors and windows were taped off with crime scene ribbons. The sticky messes on the floor were sampled by Forcenetic's team. The site had been for was a girl's grizzly. Like what was once an 8-year-old lay on the ground, one couldn't be able to tell what she was by just looking. Her head was hardly attached, if only by the spinal column. It lolled grotesquely to the side. The syrup liquid conjugated after all these hours. One eye was missing from the skull and sitting a few feet away. There was a gap in her stomach where it used to be, as if it was bitten through by a beast. Innards lay strewn about her like a party pooper on New Year's, ghastly slash marks adorned by tiny wrists, hands, and fingers crusted with blood and shredded bodily tissue, most like from who or what was after her. Clearly something wanted her dead. Her parents were in similar conditions, a mother, a father, and a grandmother, all strewn about the living room. The place was a bloodbath. It made my stomach turn. It was clear that there was a struggle, toys, dolls, puppets. Blocks were flown around the place, magazines, broken glass. The living room looked like a nightmare fuel. I gagged at the smell of blood and insides, and they had to be at least 3 days old, and it was becoming too much. Dizzily, I turned and walked away from the scene. Perhaps somewhere else in this house would be easier to stomach. I found myself upstairs. Once days passed, and then from the looks of it, I was in a child's room. No sign of struggle here. All was peaceful and everything was in place, except one thing, a notebook. A little school notebook lay open on the floor. I plucked it from the ground, turning it over in my hand. I nearly dropped it out of shock. Crusty blood literally covering it, symbols, signals, and signs. A face was scrawled on the paper on almost every page, a stitched up, twisted face. The eyes were blacked out with tiny lines through them, like ribbons or buttons. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. A small piece of paper fluttered out of the pages and landed on the floor. I knelt down and picked it up. Don't you fear, my child. I'll keep the ghouls away. I'll keep you safe at night. I'll be your friend by day. But when it comes to friends, I have very few. So please don't leave me, darling, or my heart will be torn in two. This didn't seem quite right. I turned the paper over and read the back. Madame Zoe's Worry Dolls. Your friend till the end. How strange. I picked up through the book again and started at the beginning. It looked like a normal diary. Little things were written about friends at school, conflicts with parents, and one thing that caught my eye. Grandma got me a doll for my birthday. It's nice, I guessed, but scary. Mom said I couldn't give it away. I didn't want it though. A few pages was later similar entry. I kept Grandma's doll in the drawer. I don't like its eyes. It stares at me at night. It's creepy. There was several more like this. The doll watches me everywhere I go. Its head turns. None of my other toys have come alive before. But it's weird, but neat. I named my doll Aggie. She's not that bad. She told me today that we're going to be friends. Aggie doesn't like my mom, my dad, or grandma. I don't know why. Maybe because they think I play with her too much? The entries became more and more disturbing as I read them. Aggie made me mad today. She called my mom bad things. She wouldn't stop talking, so I ripped her off of her eye. She didn't like that, and I said sorry later. Aggie is my best friend. I love Aggie. I hate my parents. Help. After that last entry, There was nothing but scribble and symbols. A chill struck in my spine as I felt acid of vomit rising in my throat. Something was terribly wrong. I had been in the room for hours and hadn't realized it. Hastily, I made my way downstairs as quickly as I could. The house was empty. The investigations were no longer there. All was left was puddles of blood and a mess. The bodies had been removed already. I glanced around my room, or the room for that matter, my eyes skimming over everything that could mean something. She did this to herself, you know. I nearly shit myself at the sound of the hollow female voice. It sounded like it was right next to me, old and ancient. I spun around looking for the source and of the hay halted abruptly as they passed the doll I had seen earlier. One of its buttons were gone. No, not this isn't possible. The voice came again. She did it to herself. There was movement everywhere, but the sound of it came from the direction of the dolls. I felt like crazy after doing it, but I spoke. Aggie? Yes? The voice replied, almost pleased that I was speaking to her. That was it. I could not hold it anymore. I vomited. This was far too much for me to handle. Oh dear, she said to me. Poor thing. Come sit down. You're not feeling well. What the hell? I choked out, swearing to God I was having a dream. Regardless, I bit. Did it to herself? What did she do to herself? Who? Yes, the girl. She did to herself. I saw the whole thing, killed her family. At one time, Granny was her first to go. She used her own little hands. The doll leaned over to the side, as if someone pushed it. Ripped them apart. Then herself. She tore out her own eye. You know I saw it. She ripped out her own throat. It was amazing thing possession. Before she even knew it, she had her torn open her insides like a gutted fish. That's what she gets. The little bitch. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was being spoken by a freaking puppet. A doll? A toy? It was all talking and moving. A plaything just described to us such a terrible murder. It was horrifying but alluring. I had to be crazy. I had to. But I moved closer to it and listened to it and asked. Why? I asked, my eyebrows furrowing with confusion. The doll simply shook her head. Shh, don't ask. It'll be okay. A rush of hot air filled my head. My mind was suddenly a blank. My eyes were drooling and dropping, and I was tired. I was losing control. My hand suddenly lifted up and made its way to the front of my shirt, fingers gripping at my flesh. It hurt, but I didn't want to stop. Don't tell my secret, Aggie whispered to me. All I did was, and I nodded. My nails began digging into my skin, blood trickling and appearing through my shirt. Within seconds, my fingers were imbleeded into my flesh, the first two knuckles sinking into the warmth. It hurt. It hurt. I was on fire. No, I started, unable to control my movements. No! My flesh was tearing, muscles rending in two. She had me. She had me completely, as I felt the pressure of my organs pressing against my muscle and membranes. This was it. I couldn't stop. And that, my little pretties, was Aggie, a creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story? Okay. I had a little bit of a background with this story. I've heard of this story from Mr. Creepypasta, like maybe around 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. It was around the time when I was starting to get into creepypastas, and when I first heard of this story, I honestly could say it's a really well-made story for what it is. Like, I mean, it was actually very messed up in my own thoughts, but it's still a pretty good story. I mean, I've heard a few narrations of this story. I mean, about, it's about this one protagonist explain about a girl who killed her parents and all. I mean, holy hell. I mean, that's very messed up. Like, in my opinion, that's a very messed up concept for the story. I mean, when I first saw this story, I honestly could say it was a very messed up story for what this is. I mean, I was actually like quite surprised at how beautiful this story is. I mean, it's a very original story and it does have a great concept for what it is. Like, it's messed up, yes, and I mean, there was some shocking, content in it. Like, it wasn't like Sweet Apple Massacre shocking. No, no, no. It was basically shocking that I honestly could say it was good that they actually did that. And I'm not gonna lie, this story honestly had me, shaking at this point because I don't know. I think it's something that this story really did for me. And it was a pretty good concept for this story. I mean, pardon me about that. I just had a burp. But ultimately thinking, I have listened to a couple of narrations of this story and I mean, holy hell, it's pretty good. Now, it's actually one of the classic creepypastas, in my opinion. It's one of the classic ones that's been around on the regular creepypasta wiki for, well, a long time, to be honest. But it's still a pretty good pasta for, you know, what this story really is. It has a really good concept. It does have a great, explanation to what's happened and all. I mean, I really have to say, it's definitely something. It's definitely a story that I think I found it enjoyable and well made in detail, especially with, how everything was going out. I mean, this story was honestly something. I mean, yeah, I actually found this story to be enjoyable. It's still a pretty good concept, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, I really do find that the ending of it was when the person was doing something to himself, like basic or herself, whoever the character, well, not character, but whoever the protagonist is. We don't really get much of the protagonist of, their backstory or that. Like, was it their, was it like a friend of the girl, or was it like a friend of theirs or a neighbor or something? I mean, we don't really get really clearly an explanation on, who the character is. I mean, I really do wish that we do get, an explanation on, who the character of this protagonist is in the story. Like, I mean, it's unfortunate that this story doesn't really give us much about the protagonist. So, I mean, I really wish the protagonist would been, you know, kind of, explained him or herself on who the protagonist is. Because if we do, then yeah, that would have been, interesting. But not only that, that would help us out with the story a lot more. Maybe that's me, but yeah, that's just here or there. Like, I mean, maybe you guys might have something, but yeah, that's just here or there. But yeah, I mean, the story was pretty good nonetheless. Only that one flaw with the story is we don't get much of the protagonist of the backstory or something. But even if we did, it would definitely help out a lot more. But that's just here or there. But yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna sit here and say this right now. Yeah. Like I'm gonna say, it's a classic creepypasta. It's worth to read. If you're, looking into reading some good creepypastas, I recommend you check out this one. Like, I'm not sure who the original author of this story is, so yeah. Since I don't know who the original author of the story is, I'm gonna sit here and wrap this video up by saying this, that I don't know who the original author of the story is, so I'm gonna leave this as anonymous for now. If I ever do find out who the original author of the story is, I'll definitely be sure to give the author proper credit, because as of now, I don't know who the original author of the story is. So if the author manages to find this video and state, if he or she, they or them wrote the story, they, one or the other, somebody can, let me know in the comments below or something, and or at least let me know, so then that way I have, an explanation, or at least a notification to that the person is the, well, owner of the story or something. So then that way I'll be sure to give the offer proper credit. But as of now, I'm just going to leave it as anonymous until said otherwise. So, great classic creepypasta, not going to lie. Definitely worth to check out if you're new to, well, if you're new to creepypastas, then you should really check out this story. And I'll tell you right now, you will not be disappointed once you've seen this. So, with that being said, and with that being the case, let me sit here and say this now. Like I'm going to say, this is simply my own personal opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be a 9.5 out of 10. I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10 because of how well the story really is for what this concept is. It's a pretty good story. Not gonna lie, this story was honestly pretty good, and it's definitely worth to check out. Also, I would have to suggest that if I really do wish we get more of the protagonist, more backstory of the protagonist in the story, because in that way that would help out a lot more. That's just me, but you guys might have, something else, well, regarding, this story, but that's here or there. But anyways, with that being said, and with that being the case, what did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me now with your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're new to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.